Happy Halloween! Hey, I've got something scary for you. Modern day Obsidian entertainment. I know the mere mention of a certain game is enough to put me on a pike, but I'm gonna mention Fallout New Vegas. I'm mentioning this because I've heard the accusation that Fallout New Vegas fans are stuck in the past and think Obsidian Entertainment is an omnipotent entity that never changed and can only put out bangers. The irony being that this argument usually comes from people that pre-ordered Starfield and are probably gonna pre-order The Elder Scrolls 6, let's be completely honest. If you do intend to do that, just know that I'm gonna laugh at you when it comes out in 2039. However, the accusation does actually raise a very good point about the gaming industry in general. You see, for years, in the gaming industry, it was possible to say from the makers of when advertising a new game. Let's think, for example, of Sonic Forces. As we saw in the trailer for that, it said from the people that brought you Sonic Generations and Sonic Colors, when the reality was that it was just 3 people who happened to be on the same dev team at one point. Actually, since Bethesda was mentioned earlier, we don't actually have to go any further than Starfield. Right there on the Steam page, Starfield is the first new universe in 25 years from Bethesda Game Studios, the award-winning creators of The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim and Fallout 4. I know it's not really a perfect comparison, but it actually does raise a good point. That being that a lot of people seem to think that a developer team, or even a group of people, are just this omnipotent entity that will put out bangers. I mean, have you seen Bungie? From Bungie, the studio that has absolutely none of the original people, we put out fucking Marathon. Or really anything related to Destiny 2. How well did the mentality of simply trusting the game studio or the names work? Not fucking well, given that there's active reports of the developers being basically depressed. And, you know, the fact that their games are shit. Speaking of shit, modern Obsidian Entertainment. Oh boy, where to start with modern Obsidian Entertainment? They put out good games in the past. That means they'll put out good games forever, right, guys? That's how that works. I'm absolutely sure of it. I was gonna make a comparison between modern Obsidian Entertainment and Bethesda, but honestly, it's 2 different scales of shit. So let's first start off with one of the most recent disasters, Avowed. Remember Avowed? Me neither. Avowed was apparently a very hyped game by Obsidian Entertainment, from the makers of Fallout New Vegas, by the way, that not only turned out to be aggressively underwhelming, mid, or even downright bad, that a lot of people simply gave up on it and a lot of people simply forgot it existed. Fake RPG elements, meaning that your choices are inconsequential a lot of the time. Game journalist levels of hand-holding for far too fucking long. Boring, uninspired story, and okay exploration. And I say okay if you are okay with a lot of the NPCs simply being entities that exist in one location. You know, rather than people who wander around and actually do things. That'll be $70, please. Even more if you want a couple of skins. Thank you for the $70. Now, can I please introduce you to modern airport levels of diversity? This, and a whole lot more that I'm not gonna get into here, not to bore ya, such as the lack of a morality system, made this collection of mini sandboxes flop on release and be forgotten so fast a lot of people simply do not remember this game even exists. Can't say I blame those people though, given the fact that the character design in this game seems like it was ripped straight from Concord. Then, and by then I mean before, you had The Outer Worlds 1, a game that, let's be completely honest, rode, at least in part, the hype from Fallout New Vegas. Unfortunately, and these aren't my words, these are the words of one of the first Steam reviews I saw, is that it ended up being more of a Fallout 4 in space. And I'm sorry, when you're calling a game of Fallout 4 in space, that really concerns me. The shooting is repetitive, the game is very forgiving, despite the fact that it does have some good ideas in it, such as AI getting suspicious even if you're wearing faction armor but are walking around funny, such as crouch walking. I could go on here, but to make my point as to how disappointing, underwhelming, undercooked, and unfun this game can be, while remaining agreeable, let's just keep in mind the fact that 25% of players have not made it past the first area that takes around an hour and a half to get out of. An RPG game cannot keep players interested for longer than an hour and a half. A game in a genre that inherently keeps players hooked for a very long time could not retain 25% of its player base in what is effectively the tutorial area. Imagine quitting Fallout New Vegas for good before even getting out of Prim if you're looking for an equivalent comparison. Oh wait, that's not something fair to compare it to because Fallout New Vegas gives you agency. Player agency? Nah, bruh, just fucking cater your content to game journalists. Make the game look pretty, make the game be snoozingly easy, and have a moon... A moon man? A fucking moon man? Well, shit, never mind. Outer Worlds 1 is the best game ever. Jokes aside, beyond the game's strong points, which there definitely are many, it is widely agreed upon that the Outer Worlds 1 is basically a pale imitation of New Vegas. It has the skill checks, but doesn't seem to understand why people liked the skill checks. People liked the skill checks because they were primarily used for role-playing. The fact that they could be used to solve quests and give better endings was effectively secondary. In the Outer Worlds 1, it's inverted, where skill checks, though not a hard requirement, are a soft requirement. A lot of things are not accounted for story-wise, and the things that are accounted for seem downright rushed. Not that that's a controversial statement, given the fact that this game has a binary morality system. There's either an objectively good choice or an objectively bad choice, and there you go, there's an unsatisfying end slide. And the humor is so far up its own ass, it kind of feels like half of the development team thought the prized RPG that Obsidian worked on before was actually a critique of capitalism and a comedy, whereas the other half saw it as a dark game. What I mean by this is that the game is trying to be impactful while having serious problems with humor. And then we get to the Outer Worlds 2. What to say about the Outer Worlds 2? How about we mention the fact that some of the advertisements for this game flex improvements to the parts of Outer Worlds that a lot of people pointed out didn't need improving? How about the fact that they tried to sell it for $80 and then lowered it to $70? How about the fact that if you bought the $100 edition, upon pressure being placed on Obsidian Entertainment to lower prices and stop being a bunch of greedy pricks, the best thing they could come up with is making a joke at the player by tagging them with consumerism, which gives them both a buff and a debuff. See guys, Obsidian is just wacky and silly. They're fucking quirk chungus, I'm sure. Let's just say that the Outer Worlds 2 is so fucking bad and so fucking not noteworthy that it is more popular to shit on the game than it is to even play it. The game is quite literally running out of players, and it hasn't even been a week at the time of recording this, having less than 20,000 people when it released, which is not exactly a good fucking sign for a sequel that took 6 years to make, and of course cost around $100 million to make as well. I can't believe I have to point this out to some idiots that actually seem to believe that any game studio simply doesn't change, they can only improve or get worse. But game studios, try not to be surprised, aren't fucking factories. Just because a game studio put something good out in the past does not mean they will put something good out again, and they can, for one reason or another, simply not learn their fucking lesson. The best description of the Outer Worlds 2 that I've heard is that it's avowed in space, and I'm sorry, if you're saying that it's avowed in space, then your game is not good. You should not get hyped for a game just because it's made by people who once upon a time made something good, and you should most definitely not be hyped for a game just because the fucking studio is the same, because, and you might be surprised by this, people move on, and the people who made that one game you really like may just not be there right now. And even if some of them are, well, the fact that I just said some should give you an indication as to potential problems there. Unfortunately, this is something that needs to be said because a lot of people simply skip the evolutionary cycle of simple pattern recognition or the ability to consider more than a single variable. Obsidian is not a company that is lacking ideas. Obsidian does have good ideas, and Obsidian does have competent people in there, but they simply cannot make their visions happen in a way that is actually good. Sure, they might have some neat ideas here and there, but on the whole, it simply isn't enough. And the fact that they are just blatantly trying to recreate past success isn't really helping out much now, is it? A problem further compounded by the fact that they have the self-awareness and originality of a 39-year-old quirk chungus obnoxious bitch drinking a latte in a modern cafe. Nothing I've said here is actually newsworthy, but apparently it still needed to be said to a lot of modern-day consumers that Obsidian wants you to desperately believe that they don't rely on, and it also needs to be said to the people that are still using the argument that New Vegas fans are just a bunch of Obsidian purists that think that the studio can do literally nothing wrong. Got it? Good. Didn't get it? Go into a back alley with Moon Man. No, not the gay brother that Obsidian cooked up. Thank you guys for watching, thank you guys for rating, and I'll see you all in the next one. And with a very special thanks to Kherty, IQ, Paladin Uztanine, Temp87, Azfar Azhar, Sami Gulen, Nikola, Lappclave, Dark Lord of MILFs, Paskov, Dimitri Petrenko, Michal, Unchained Zeity, Prince Nocti, Harms the Sunbro, Iosefka, Jackblaze, Augustus, Dominus Grimm, Billy Crandell, Second Jokes 451, Operator Jade, and Cameron Michal. Join the channel members to see all videos early and be featured at the end.